Tea, one of the greatest liquids here on planet Earth. Anyways, here's the thing. Right now is actually one of the best times to go pick and scavenge for your tea. That's right. There's science behind that. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. There's also evergreen teas. Yes, you guessed it. The ones with leaves outside. There's several plants out there that make delicious teas when combined with other stuff that you could forage for right now. And then there's also plants that you can grow on your windowsill perfectly well. Easy enough to do with little to no light. Also, teas. So today's video, we're going to talk about tea and gardening because it's that time of year where this is the lifeblood of every Canadian. This is even Tim Hortons green tea. So that's Canadian AF. Tastes like garbage, but you know what? That's okay. So let's go and look at the still pickable group of plants. So the reason why you'd pick some of these or wait to pick some of these till now is because cooler, drier temp drying, very confusing. Again, very bad at stringing words together on a good day. The temperature and the ambient humidity right now is obviously cooler and drier than that of midsummer. And turns out that these lower temps combined with lower humidity actually helps to preserve the volatile compounds that make tea smell and taste the way tea does. So that's why you would maybe wait to actually harvest till this point in time. So I'm in zone 3. We had snow. We don't have snow now. Snow will come again eventually. And yeah, we're 10 degrees Celsius this week for some odd reason. I've never once in my life had a November this warm, but here we are. I'll take it. Normally we're at like -3, but you could do this basically until like probably -10, I would say, and you'd be just fine. So number 1 is thyme. It's antimicrobial, and it also is very aromatic, and frost does not ruin it in any way, shape, or form. It's great for sore throats, and you only need about a teaspoon for every 250 milliliters of water is kind of like the ratio. Obviously, you can adjust this depending on what you like, but if you're prone to sore throats, you still got thyme outside, and you're thinking to yourself, I can't cook with this anymore, you could dry it. You dry it out on the stems and then utilize it in tea. Next one is oregano. I don't love this one in a tea, but it's the same as thyme. It's got that crisp factor right now, so it's probably kind of crispy, but you can pull it off, crush it up and put it in a tea. Like I said, not my favorite. Doesn't really have any benefits that I know of, but it's definitely something that people do use in teas. So if you know why people use it in teas, comment that down below. I'd be interested to know. That one definitely you probably still have out in your garden somewhere in a snowbank or just in a pile. This one is probably my favorite, and that is rose hips. So this one, obviously you can find in your backyard, but it is all over any sort of hiking trail in North America, relatively certain. And interestingly enough, once it gets hit with frost, that is when it becomes sweet and tasty. So you don't want to harvest it before it frosts because it's gross. So you wait for it to frost, you go and grab those rose hips off. The benefits are enormous. There's a ton of benefits to rose hips. The tea itself is delicious. It's unique. It's a unique flavor and incredibly easy to identify. If you are going to get it from a hiking trail, you really can't screw this up. So definitely one you may want to grab, dry out, and then store for the winter. Okay, so the forest pantry, if you will, the evergreens that you can actually use in teas. So this, obviously, you're going to have to like the taste. Some are stronger than others, but there is an enormous profile when it comes to vitamins that are found, oddly enough, inside of these evergreens. Not to mention, they're incredibly aromatic, and at the very least, you could put them on the stove, heat them up in boiling water, and kind of have like a natural scent to your home if you're hosting people for, Thanksgiving or Christmas, whatever the case is. But you want to stay away from one for sure, and that's yew, because yew is incredibly toxic, so you don't want to tea that one up at all. But there are ones like spruce, for example, pine needles, all will do great. You want to get as close to the tip as possible. Avoid the ones that are farther down. They tend to be a little bit more bitter, but as close to the tips as possible is where you want to grab a majority of this plant debris from. And then the next one is actually juniper berries specifically. So they kind of look like dried out blueberries, and these are often used to make gin, but you can actually also use these in tea. Again, you're not supposed to drink this one if you're pregnant, and you're supposed to use it sparingly. I'm assuming it upsets your stomach, but yeah. And if you want to make your own gin, my understanding is you just take those juniper berries and you put them inside of vodka and you're done. Well, you let it sit for a little while, but then you're done. Yeah. So those ones, don't swallow them whole. You literally have to let them steep. So that's also maybe something to think about. Knowing me, if I wouldn't have read that, I would have just tried eating them because it's a berry. And then I would have gotten horrifically sick. Okay, so let's get into the 6 that you can start on a windowsill, are obviously under a grow light. Put them where they're going to get most of the day's sun. You may need to supplement with LED lighting depending on where you are, but for the most part, these guys don't have huge light demands. And you can obviously start these from either seed or you can start them from cuttings. Either or will work in this case. First off is mint. Mint, spearmint, peppermint, any of them incredibly easy to grow from seed. Their light demands, their nutrition demands, all relatively minimal, and you can harvest from them all year. So I think that one's probably pretty obvious. Spearmint is great for women. So fun fact, if you want something that's got some hormone stuff in it, regulators, then I guess spearmint is the one to go with. Otherwise, mint in general is just delicious. Next up is holy basil. So this one has got kind of like a clove spice feel to it. It's warming, like a warming feeling spice. And the more you trim it, the more of a bush it makes. So the only thing with this one is that it does like a little bit warmer. So it'll do fine at room temperature, but it will not do well by a drafty window. So if you're living the drafty window life, I would probably skip this one. But if you have just regular new windows, lots of light, then it's nice. It's a nice change from like your mints and your lemon bombs for sure. Okay, the next one is fennel seed. So fennel is not going to grow into its fennelness, obviously indoors, but it will make kind of like a microgreen that you could use in a tea, or you can roast the seeds, oddly enough, and then use that in a tea. This one also is for digestion. So yeah, I would say this one, if you're limited on light, windowsills, time, that sort of thing, I would do the fennel seed route because you're just aiming for the greens and you're going to cut down the microgreens as soon as they grow, dry them out, use them in a tea. So that one I would utilize if you are a little bit limited in resources. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to just pop these guys onto a cookie sheet rack and dry them out, preferably at a little bit higher heat. So you could dry them out in the oven for, anywhere from 2 to 12 hours. You can use a dehydrator, or you can just do it as room temperature, kind of in a warm window. And then the way that you know that they're ready is when they're crispy. So when you grab them, they kind of just like disintegrate in your hand. That means that they're ready. And then you want to store these in a glass jar with somewhere around 10 to 20% headroom. I vote for 20% headroom. Anything less than that, I feel like it gets moldy. So definitely headroom is important. And if you dry them out properly and you make sure it gets to that crispy level, these will do fine all winter long. I'll pop up some DIY options in regards to the mixtures you could go with, whether you're trying to do relaxation, digestion, whatever the case is. This is kind of your combos you could work with. Some of it, obviously, you're either going to have to go purchase or you'll have to have on hand already. But these are all just recommendations. You can literally just do mint straight up, fennel straight up. No reason why you can't. I always find homemade teas are much more flavorful, and you can actually make them the texture that you like so that you don't end up with ground tea leaves all in the bottom of your container or your glass of water. And that's probably like the biggest reason I like to do my own teas, because I hate the grit that ends up in the bottom of the teas. And this allows you to avoid that entirely because you don't have to pulverize them into nothing. So anyways, with that being said, you guys have to let me know in the comments down below if you grow your own teas and what kind of teas you grow. Raspberry leaf tea is one that obviously you can't grow inside, but is definitely worth grabbing some raspberry leaves next year to dry to make a tea from. So anyways, I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.